Commander Yara Chen stood alone on the observation deck of the UHS Remembrance. Through the thick glass window, she watched the endless darkness of space. Somewhere ahead, hidden by the black emptiness, was Earth, the world her ancestors had left behind more than 3,000 years ago. She had seen pictures of Earth in old records: brown continents, gray oceans, skies filled with poison, a dying world that could no longer support the children it had created. Her great-grandparents, many generations removed, had been among the last to leave. They had packed what little they could carry and boarded ships that would take them to distant stars. They never looked back. Looking back was too painful. Now Yara was going back. She was the first human in over 3 millennia to make this journey. The door behind her opened with a soft hiss. Dr. Emil Vasquez walked in, holding a datapad in his hands. He was the ship's lead scientist, a thin man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had studied Earth his entire life, though he had never seen it with his own eyes. None of them had. "The crew is nervous," Emil said, standing beside her. "Some of them cannot sleep." "I know," Yara replied. "I cannot sleep either." "Do you think the stories are true about the signals?" Yara nodded slowly. 6 months ago, deep space sensors had detected something impossible. Electromagnetic signals were coming from Earth, organized patterns. Not random noise from a dead world, but something deliberate, something alive. The Galactic Council had taken notice. The Council was made up of 17 alien species, all of them older and more powerful than humanity. They had rules about abandoned worlds. Once a species left a planet, that planet was no longer theirs. It belonged to the universe. Any attempt to return was a violation of cosmic law. Humanity had learned to follow these rules. They had no choice. In the vast community of alien civilizations, humans were young, weak, and few in number. They survived by being polite, by being quiet, by never causing trouble. But the signals from Earth demanded investigation. The Council allowed humanity to send one ship, one crew, no weapons, no equipment for building colonies, just observers who would look, record, and report back. Yara had volunteered immediately. Earth was more than a planet to her. It was an idea, a memory passed down through countless generations. Every human child learned about Earth. They learned about blue skies and green forests and oceans that stretched beyond the horizon. They learned about the mistakes their ancestors made, the pollution, the greed, the wars that scarred the land. And they learned about the Exodus, when humanity finally admitted defeat and fled into the stars. Earth was their shame, but it was also their origin. And Yara needed to see it with her own eyes, dropping out of hyperspace in 10 minutes. The ship's computer announced YARA, straightened her uniform, and walked toward the bridge. Her crew was already at their stations. 23 men and women, all volunteers, all terrified, all pretending to be calm. Navigator Kofi Mensah sat at the front, his fingers resting lightly on the controls. Communications Officer Leanne Park monitored the radio frequencies, listening for any signals from their destination. Security Chief Marcus Webb stood near the door, his arms crossed, his face hard. The Council had forbidden weapons, but Marcus was a weapon all by himself. "All stations ready," Kofi reported. "Take us in," Yara commanded. The ship shuddered as it dropped from hyperspace. The stars outside the windows shifted and blurred. And then, suddenly, there it was. Earth. Yara heard someone gasp. She heard someone else begin to cry. She understood completely. The planet before them was not the dead world from the old records. It was not brown or gray or poisoned. It was alive. Swirling white clouds drifted across its surface. Blue oceans sparkled in the light of the sun, and covering the continents, spreading across mountains and valleys and plains, was green. So much green that it hurt to look at. "That is impossible," Emil whispered. The ecological collapse was complete. Nothing could have survived. Nothing could have recovered. Not in 3,000 years. Not in 30,000 years. Then how do you explain that? Marcus asked, pointing at the view screen. Nobody could explain it. Nobody had words. Leanne suddenly leaned forward, pressing her hand to her earpiece. Commander, I am receiving transmissions from the surface. Multiple frequencies. The signals are. I do not know how to describe them. They are not human. But they are not random either. Someone is down there. Someone is waiting. Yara stared at the beautiful world that had once been humanity's home. Her heart was pounding in her chest. Her hands were trembling. She had prepared herself for many things. She had prepared herself for ruins and dust and death. She had prepared herself for ghosts. She had not prepared herself for this. Prepare a landing team, she said, her voice barely steady. We are going down, Commander, Marcus said carefully. We have no idea what is down there. The Council ordered us to observe only. If we land, we might be violating our agreement. A council sent us to find answers, Yara replied. The answers are on that planet. We did not travel 3,000 light years to watch from orbit. She turned to face her crew. Every eye was on her. Every face showed fear and wonder in equal measure. Our ancestors left Earth because they had no choice, Yara said. They were running from death. We are not running. We are returning. Whatever's waiting for us down there, we will face it. We will face it because that is what humans do. We face the unknown. We always have. Nobody argued. Nobody complained. They simply nodded and began preparing for the descent. The remembrance turned toward Earth, toward the impossible green world that had once been home, and Commander Yara Chen whispered a prayer to ancestors she had never known, asking them to watch over their children as they finally, after so long, came back. The landing shuttle cut through Earth's atmosphere like a knife through water. Inside, Yara gripped her seat as the craft shook and rattled. Through the small windows, she could see flames dancing across the hull. The heat shields were working, protecting them from the burning friction of entry, but the fires still looked terrifying. Then they were through. The flames disappeared, replaced by blue sky. Clear, perfect, beautiful blue sky. Oxygen levels are incredible, Emil said, staring at his instruments. Higher than any human colony. Higher than Earth was before the collapse. This air is cleaner than anything we have ever created. The shuttle descended through layers of white clouds. When it emerged, the crew fell silent. Below them stretched a forest unlike anything in human memory. The trees were massive, their trunks as wide as buildings, their branches reaching hundreds of meters into the air. But these were not ordinary trees. They seemed to be made of crystal, their surfaces catching the sunlight and breaking it into rainbow colors. The leaves glowed with soft blue and green light, even in the brightness of day. The forest stretched in every direction, covering hills and valleys and mountains. Those trees, Leanne whispered. They are singing. C was right. Through the shuttle's external microphones, they could hear a gentle humming sound. The trees were vibrating, producing a melody that seemed to have no beginning and no end. It was the most peaceful sound Yara had ever heard. The shuttle landed in a clearing near what had once been Central Europe. The old maps said this area was once called Germany, though nothing remained of the human civilization that had lived here. The crystal forest had swallowed everything. Yara was the first to step outside. She had prepared herself for many things, but the smell of the air caught her by surprise. It smelled like flowers and rain and fresh soil. It smelled like life. Stay close, Marcus warned, stepping out behind her. We do not know what lives here. They walked slowly through the forest, their boots crunching on ground covered with soft moss. Small creatures watched them from the crystal branches above. They looked like birds, but their bodies shimmered with light, and their wings were made of something that looked like liquid glass. They did not seem afraid of the humans. They seemed curious, Emil stopped suddenly, kneeling to examine the soil. He scooped some into his hand and studied it carefully. "Okay, this is not natural evolution," he said, his voice shaking. "The structure of this soil is artificial. Someone designed it. Someone created it, molecule by molecule. This entire ecosystem was built on purpose." "Built by who?" Yara asked. Before Emil could answer, the forest ahead of them began to change. The crystal trees leaned away from each other, creating a path. The humming sound grew louder, forming something that almost sounded like words. And at the end of the path, light gathered. It started as a small spark, no bigger than a firefly. Then it grew, expanding outward until it was as tall as a human. But it was not human. It had no solid form. It was made of pure light, folding and unfolding in patterns that hurt to look at. Colors Yara had never seen rippled across its surface. It existed in 3 dimensions, but somehow also in more than 3, as if parts of it extended into spaces human eyes could not perceive. The crew raised their hands to shield their eyes. Marcus stepped forward, placing himself between the entity and Commander Chen, but the being made no threatening moves. It simply floated before them, waiting. "Do not be afraid," a voice said. The voice did not come from the air. It came from inside their heads, gentle and warm, like a memory of someone who had loved them. "We have waited very long for you to return." Yara stepped around Marcus, facing the being directly. "What are you? What have you done to our world?" "We are what your species might call gardeners. We travel between stars, finding worlds that have been wounded, and we heal them. We found your Earth shortly after you departed. It was dying. It was in terrible pain. So we did what we always do. We planted new seeds. We grew new life. We made it beautiful again. Why?" Emil asked, his scientific mind struggling to understand. "Why would you do this for a planet that was not yours?" The gardener's light rippled with something that might have been emotion. "Because your species is special. When we arrived on this world, we found something we had never found before. Beneath the poison and the death, we found memories, buried in the soil, written in the stones, hidden in the very atoms of this planet. I found the echoes of every human who had ever lived. Your laughter, your tears, your songs, your dreams. Earth remembered you. It loved you. Even after everything you did to hurt it, it still loved you." "Huh." Yara felt tears forming in her eyes. She did not try to stop them. "The planet called to us," the gardener continued. "It asked us to heal it. It asked us to make it ready, because it knew, somehow, that you would come back. It never stopped believing in its children." "We did not know," Yara whispered. "We thought Earth was dead. We thought we had killed it. He wounded it," the gardener said. "But you did not kill it. Nothing kills love. Love only waits. And now your waiting is over. Earth has been prepared. The garden is ready. All that remains is for the gardener's children to come home." The crystal forest hummed louder, and Yara realized the trees were not just singing. They were welcoming. They were celebrating. After 3,000 years of loneliness, Earth was finally seeing its children again. And somewhere deep in her chest, in a place she did not know existed, Yara felt something ancient stir. She felt the connection her ancestors had tried to forget. She felt the pull of the soil, the call of the wind, the embrace of a mother who had never stopped waiting. She was home. The message from the Galactic Council arrived 7 days after the landing. Yara read it 3 times, hoping she had misunderstood. She had not. "Emergency session," she told her crew, her voice flat. "All 17 species. They are discussing our fate right now." The council chamber was located on a massive space station at the center of the galaxy. Yara had never been there, but she had seen images. A vast circular room where representatives of every major species gathered to decide the future of civilizations. Humanity had a seat at that table, but it was the smallest seat, the weakest voice, the newest child in a family of ancient giants. For hours, the crew waited. They explored the crystal forest. They spoke with the gardeners, learning more about how Earth had been healed. They sent detailed reports back to human colonies, sharing everything they had discovered. And they waited. When the verdict finally came, it was delivered by a Kethvari diplomat. The Kethvari were beings made of living silicon, their bodies shaped like jagged crystals that caught light in unpleasant ways. They were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, and they had never liked humanity. "The Council has reached a decision," the Kethvari announced. Its voice transmitted across space to the remembrance. Humanity violated the abandonment protocols by landing on Earth without proper authorization. Furthermore, Earth is now the sovereign territory of the beings called gardeners. Humanity has no legal claim to this world. Yara felt her stomach drop. She had expected this, but hearing it still hurt. "The punishment for this violation is as follows," the Kethvari continued. "Humanity will surrender 3 of its 12 colony worlds, the planets designated as New Shanghai, Evergreen. And Prometheus will be given 2 species currently seeking new territories. All human inhabitants of these worlds will have 1 standard year to relocate." Marcus slammed his fist against the wall. Leanne covered her mouth with her hand. Emil simply sat down as if his legs could no longer support him. 3 worlds, billions of people, centuries of work, building new homes among the stars. All of it would be taken away. "This is not justice," Yara said to the screen. "This is punishment for existing. The gardeners invited us. Earth called us home. We did not steal anything. The gardeners are an unregistered species," the Kethvari replied coldly. "Their invitation has no legal standing. Earth was abandoned. It now belongs to them. You are trespassers. The council has spoken." The transmission ended. The room fell silent. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They simply stood in the weight of what had happened, feeling it crushed them. "What do we do now?" Leanne asked quietly. Marcus was pacing like a caged animal. "We fight. We have weapons. Maybe not as many as the council, but we have enough to make them bleed." "And then what?" Emil asked. "We fight and we lose. Humanity is destroyed. Our species ends. Is that what you want?" "I want justice." "There is no justice in extinction." Yara listened to them argue, but her mind was somewhere else. She was thinking about the gardeners, about what they had said, about the memories buried in Earth's soil, about how the planet had called to its children even after they abandoned it. She was thinking about stories. Humanity had always been a species of stories. Even in their darkest hours, even when everything seemed lost, they told stories. They painted pictures on cave walls. They wrote poems about love and death. They sang songs to comfort crying children. Stories were how humans made sense of the universe. Stories were how they survived. And suddenly, Yara knew exactly what to do. "We are not going to fight," she said quietly. Everyone stopped and looked at her. "The council thinks they know who we are," Yara continued. "They think we are weak, foolish, primitive. They think we will beg or fight or run away. They have already decided how this story ends." She walked to the center of the room, looking at each of her crew members in turn. "Ah, but they do not know what we left behind. They have never seen what humanity really is. They have never understood what makes us special." "What are you suggesting?" Emil asked. The gardener said, "Earth remembers us. Every human who ever lived. Every song, every poem, every dream. When our ancestors fled this world, they did not just take people. They took our history. They preserved everything that made us who we are." Yara pointed toward the window, toward the green world waiting outside. "Beneath this new paradise, our old cities still exist. The gardeners built around them, not over them. Our ancestors placed those cities in temporal stasis, frozen in time, waiting for someone to find them, waiting for someone to remember. She took a deep breath. We are not going to fight the council. We are not going to beg. We are going to invite them here. We are going to show them who we really are. We are going to tell them our stories. And then we will see if they still want to punish us. That is insane, Marcus said. Stories will not change galactic law. Maybe not, Yara admitted. But law is not just rules. Law is agreement. The council only has power because 17 species agree to follow it. If we can change how they see us, we can change everything. She smiled, and for the first time since the verdict, hope flickered in the hearts of her crew. Prepare a message, Yara ordered. Send it to every species in the council. Tell them we accept their ruling. But before we leave Earth forever, we invite them to come and see what humanity built. We invite them to witness who we are. It was a desperate plan, a foolish plan, a very human plan, and it was their only chance. The Galactic Council reconvened 30 days after the delegations returned from Earth. Yara watched the proceedings from the observation deck of the Remembrance. Her crew gathered around her. They expected the worst. They had prepared themselves for the worst. 3 worlds lost, billions displaced. The slow death of hope. What they got was something else entirely. The HFY spoke first. The same delegate who had delivered the original punishment rose before the council. Its crystal body still bearing traces of the tears it had shed in the archive. I was wrong, it said. The 17 species fell silent. In the entire history of the Galactic Council, no HFY had ever admitted to being wrong. It simply did not happen. I looked at humanity and saw primitives, the delegate continued. I saw a young species that had destroyed its own world. I saw failure and weakness and shame, but I did not look closely enough. I did not see what they truly are. The delegate turned, addressing the entire assembly. Humanity carries their dead with them, not as burdens, but as teachers. Every mistake they have ever made lives in their memory. Every loss, every tragedy, every moment of pain. They do not forget. They cannot forget. And because they remember, they grow. Another voice joined the HFY. The Venora delegate, a massive being of shifting organic matter, rose to speak. We have seeded life across 1,000 worlds. We have watched species rise and fall. We thought we understood what survival meant, but the humans taught us something new. Survival is not enough. What matters is meaning. Why do we live? Do we leave behind? The humans asked these questions constantly. They cannot stop asking. It is their greatest weakness and their greatest strength. One by one, the delegations spoke. Species that had dismissed humanity for centuries now spoke of them with something approaching respect. Not all of them agreed. Some still saw humans as dangerous, reckless, unpredictable. But even the critics admitted that humanity was different, special, worth protecting. Then the gardeners appeared. They had never addressed the council before. In 10,000 years of traveling between stars, they had avoided all politics, all conflict, all interaction with organized civilizations. They simply did their work, healing wounded worlds, and moved on. But today, they spoke. We have cultivated 900 worlds, the gardener said, its light filling the council chamber. We have grown forests on dead moons and seeded oceans in empty craters. We have created life where none existed and restored life where it had been lost. But never, in all our long existence, have we encountered a species like humanity. The light shifted, forming images that floated in the air, images of Earth, before and after. When we found their world, it was dying. The soil was poisoned. The air was fire. Nothing should have survived. But buried beneath the destruction, we found something we had never found before. We found memory. We found love. The planet itself remembered the people who had hurt it, and it still loved them. It called to us, begging us to heal it, begging us to make it ready for their return. The images changed, showing the crystal forests, the new oceans, the life that now flourished on Earth. We did not save Earth for ourselves. We saved it for humanity. Because any species that can inspire such love in the very ground they walk on deserves a second chance. The gardener turned to face the council directly. We offer humanity more than their homeworld. We offer them partnership. Together, we will travel to the dead places of the galaxy. We will find wounded worlds and heal them. But we will do more than grow forests and fill oceans. We will plant meaning. We will seed stories. We will teach the universe to remember. The council voted. It was not unanimous, but it was overwhelming. The abandonment protocols were suspended. The punishment against humanity was canceled. Earth belonged to humanity once more, not as a gift from the council, but as a recognition of something the galaxy had finally understood. Humanity mattered, not because they were powerful, not because they were wise, but because they carried something the universe desperately needed: memory. 6 months later, the first colonial ships arrived at Earth. They came from all 12 human worlds, carrying people who had only known their homeworld through stories. They descended through clouds and crystal forests. They landed on soil that had been prepared for them across 3,000 years of waiting. Yara's chin stood on a hill overlooking the landing zone. Around her, the gardeners watched in silence, their light, gentle, and warm. Behind her, her crew wept openly, not from sadness, but from joy. The ships opened. Humans stepped out onto Earth for the first time in 3 millennia. Some fell to their knees. Some scooped soil into their hands and pressed it against their faces. Some simply stood still, breathing air that smelled like home. A child broke free from her mother's grasp and ran toward the crystal forest. She stopped at the edge, looking up at trees that sang with ancient voices. Then she laughed, a sound, pure and bright, and the trees seemed to sing louder in response. Was it worth it? Emo asked, standing beside Yara. The risk, the uncertainty. We could have lost everything. Yara watched the child dancing beneath the crystal branches. She watched families embracing on soil their ancestors had fled. She watched a species, wounded and scarred and imperfect, finally coming home. We did not come back to take anything, she said. We came back to remember, and now the whole galaxy will remember with us. She turned to look at the gardener hovering nearby. What happens now? Now, the gardener said, we begin. There are many wounded worlds waiting, many dead places that need life, and many species that need to learn what humanity has taught us today. What is that? The gardener's light rippled with something that might have been a smile, that the story is never really over. It only changes. It only grows. And as long as someone remembers, love never dies. Yara nodded. She took one last look at the world her ancestors had left behind, the world that had waited so patiently for them to return. Then she turned and walked toward the future. Earth was home again. But more than that, it was a beginning, and somewhere in the soil beneath her feet, 3,000 years of memories stirred. Finally at peace, finally complete, the children had come home. They came. All of them. 17 species sent delegations to Earth. Ships of every shape and size filled the orbit above the green planet. Crystalline vessels from the HFY. Massive organic transports from the Venora beings of living tissue who built their ships from their own flesh. Sleek silvercraft from the Talix. Machine intelligences who had transcended physical bodies millennia ago. And many others. Species that humanity had barely spoken to, species that had barely acknowledged humanity existed. They all came to see what the desperate humans wanted to show them. The gardeners helped. They opened passages through the crystal forests, leading to the places where old Earth slept beneath the new growth. They guided the alien delegations down through layers of soil and root and stone, until they reached the first of the preserved cities, town New York. The name meant nothing to the aliens, but it had meant everything to the humans who built it. The city stood exactly as it had on the last day of the Exodus. Towers of glass and steel reached toward a ceiling of earth and crystal. Streets stretched in perfect grids, empty of people but full of memories. And at the center of the city, in what had once been called Central Park, stood the entrance to the archive.yara, led the alien delegations personally. She watched their reactions as they walked through human history. She saw confusion, curiosity, and sometimes disgust. The HFY seemed bored. The Venora seemed disturbed. The Talix recorded everything without comment. But slowly, something changed. The archive was not just a collection of data. It was a journey. It started at the very beginning with the first cave paintings made by ancient hands. Simple images of animals and hunters drawn by people who had no written language, no technology, no understanding of the vast universe around them. But they had stories. They had dreams. They had the need to leave something behind. The alien delegations walked through human history, one step at a time. They saw the rise of civilizations and the fall of empires. They saw wars that killed millions and peace treaties that saved millions more. They saw humanity at its worst, the cruelty and hatred and selfishness that had nearly destroyed them. And they saw humanity at its best, the kindness and courage and love that had kept them alive. They saw a mother holding her dying child during a plague, singing softly even as tears ran down her face. They saw soldiers from enemy nations sharing food in the frozen wasteland of a battlefield. They saw scientists working through the night to cure diseases, artists creating beauty in the midst of horror, ordinary people sacrificing everything for strangers they would never meet. They saw humanity fail again and again, and they saw humanity rise again and again. The Talix delegation stopped before a recording of Earth's final days. The sky was gray with poison. The oceans were dying. Cities were burning as desperate people fought for the last resources. It was ugly. It was shameful. Humanity had done this to themselves. But then the recording continued. It showed the evacuation ships being built. It showed people giving up their seats so others could escape. It showed communities sharing their last food, their last water, their last hope. It showed a species that knew it had made terrible mistakes, but refused to let those mistakes be the end of the story. "Why did you preserve this?" the Talix leader asked, its voice coming from a floating sphere of light. "This shows your species at its weakest. Your failures, your shame. Because shame is part of who we are," Yara replied. "We do not hide from our mistakes. We remember them. We learn from them. Every failure teaches us how to be better. But you still fail. Your history is full of repeated errors. And we will probably fail again. But we will also keep trying. That is what makes us human. Not perfection, persistence." Talix said nothing. But it did not leave. On the seventh day, the delegations reached the heart of the archive. It was a small room, simple and quiet. There was nothing impressive about it. No grand displays, no dramatic presentations, just a single screen showing a single recording. A human mother sat on a cramped evacuation ship. In her arms was a baby, crying softly. The mother knew she would not survive the journey. There was not enough food, not enough medicine. She was already sick, but she smiled at her child and began to sing. The song was simple, a lullaby passed down through generations, words worn smooth by countless mothers singing to countless children. It spoke of stars and dreams and the promise that love never truly ends. The mother sang until her voice faded. The baby slept, and somewhere outside the ship, the dying Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just another star in the sky. The recording ended. Silence filled the room, and then, for the first time in their species' entire existence, a HFY delegate began to cry. The silicon being's crystal body trembled. Strange sounds emerged from deep within its structure. Clear liquid that might have been tears dripped from its angular face. It wept for a species it had dismissed. It wept for a mother it had never known. It wept because, for the first time, it understood something it had never understood before. Pain was universal. Love was universal. The need to leave something behind, to matter, to be remembered, was universal. Humanity was not just a collection of mistakes. Humanity was a mirror, and every species in that room, looking into that mirror, saw themselves, one by one. The alien delegations left the archive. They returned to their ships in silence. They sent no messages, made no announcements.